Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. You get fairy dust. I get fairy dust. Little Fawn gets fairy dust. Amelie gets fairy dust. Hi, Amelie. Um, okay, so if you are an oversharer, this video's for you. I want you to think about it, or I'm going to encourage you to think about it in a way that you probably haven't thought about it before. Um, and let me just start by saying that oversharing is not a thing. Um, it we may feel that, I mean, it is a thing and it's not a thing. Just like everything that I love about psychology, it's always a paradox. But if we're feeling guilty about oversharing or being embarrassed that we overshare, um, something that I want you to consider is that you weren't born this way, that that there has been something in your childhood in which you felt like you needed to justify, argue, defend, or explain yourself. That's called JADE, JADE. Justify, argue, defend, and explain. And we do not do that. As a recovering fawn, we do not justify, we do not argue, we do not defend, and we do not explain. And there's a final one that I've added to it, which is jade plus vitamin C, which is really stupid, but it helps me remember. It's convince. So, or you can think of JADE. We do not justify, argue, defend, explain, or convince anybody of anything. So a lot of times we are so busy explaining our choices, explaining our, like one example of an argument might be, or a thing where this happens, where we feel compelled to justify, argue, defend, or explain or convince, is like, why, somebody like, why are you acting this way? Why are you being this way? Or why did you say that? Or why are you doing that? And I have to like, oh my God, oh, no, 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 I'm so sorry. Like, I really meant well. I assumed that we were talking about this, but you want to talk about, like, you just feel this feeling of, you feel this feeling of like you are little or like you're in trouble. And so you are going to justify, argue, defend, or explain, or convince that you weren't being mean, or convince that you weren't being stupid, or convince that you weren't being XYZ or the other thing. The interesting thing is a lot of times when we feel like we need to justify, argue, and also our choices, or like why we've chosen this path or that path. We're like, no, no, let me tell you, like, this is how I came to the decision. And I think there's two reasons for this. That one of the reasons that we are like this and see, we think that we're just like this, but this didn't come out of a vacuum. This came probably from one of your main relationships with your dad or your mom, or a grandparent, or somebody that was really close to you in your life. Um, this will definitely happen if one of the parents is a narcissist or has another kind of personality disorder, uh, which is like making you wrong. And so we're like, I didn't mean to be wrong. I didn't mean to do it this way. So let me explain. So it has its origins in in childhood is what I would say about that. And so you can know if you're feeling like you need to argue, defend, explain, justify, that something in you is being triggered. And there could also be some shame behind that. Whatever it is that you did that you feel like you need to justify, argue, defend, or explain, um, that you can know that you aren't being like this because out of the blue. Like, this is a pattern that and that it's a pattern that is expected of us. And it's not an accident that we end up in these situations where we do feel like we need to justify, argue, defend, or explain. And usually for fawns, we're not arguing. It really, for me, like that's why I added C is, to Jade is, I really felt the need to convince, like, no, 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 this is a good idea, or and it's like, okay, so number one, it's not original to you. It is being triggered. And then because we're used to justifying, and what I think of Jade Plessy is what's behind it is like, let me justify the fact that I exist. Let me argue that it's okay that I exist. I'm so sorry for existing, but let me please explain to you why I should exist. So I think it is very existential. And so that's one thing to know is that if you're feeling like this, if you're feeling like, oh, no, 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 I need to explain this, or, oh, they misunderstood me, so I need to, that, you can know that it is not an accident, that there's something in the relationship that you're in that is triggering this, that is not an accident. The other reason why I think Jade, or why quote unquote oversharing is not original to you, that oversharing is something that is triggered in us, is because in a dysfunctional family system, knowledge is power. And so if we are defending our position, if we're explaining it, if we're convincing about it, if we're arguing about it, we are giving somebody a lot of ammunition. We're giving them a lot of things that they can use for weapons against us. We're giving them the information that they need so that in the future they can make us feel small again. And like, we're not about that. So that's why I say oversharing isn't a thing, that it's not just something. I mean, there is a percentage of of people that I guess overshare, and it's just their brand of dysfunction, and they don't care, or there's nothing wrong with it or whatever, and that's fine. Um, but yeah, so if you feel like, or if you ever think like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I overshare, it's like, oh, no, 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 no. Don't understand, like, look at the context. The context is always so important. So look at the context in which you feel like you need to do this. Also, is it with a particular person? Like, is there like a particular person or more than one person, like, oh shit, I do this with my boss all the time, or I do this with a particular parent all the time. It's like, oh, okay, so you can use, one of my favorite tools was like, oh, that's so interesting, I don't feel the need so to justify, argue, defend, or explain, or convince anybody of anything. And so I'm not that way with safe people. I don't feel that way. Usually if there's a misunderstanding, it's like, "Oh, no, I didn't, oh, Freudian slip," or "I didn't mean to say that. What I meant was this." And then the other person's like, "Oh, totally got it. Moving on." Like we can have an exchange of like an adult exchange where you didn't really understand where I was coming from, or you didn't really understand what I meant, or you didn't like it that I ignored this, that, or the other. Then you can say, "Hey, I just wanted to check in with you," or just like, "Hey, like, when you didn't greet me when I came in, or like, are we good? Like, whatever." Or, and then I might say, "Oh yeah, I just didn't hear you come in." Oh, okay. And then we're back to baseline. We're back to normal. But with somebody else, it's like, okay, it's this like, no, no, I really didn't hear you. Well, you knew I was on my way home. Yeah, but I didn't hear you when you walked through the door, because otherwise I would have greeted you. So, we can, like, if it's not fixed, if whatever, like, you know, um, wrinkle has come up in our relationship, and it is not fixed by one of two sentences where I don't feel like I'm having to like, oh, let me justify, let me explain myself, let me explain why I deserve to exist in this world imperfectly. Something's up. something's up. So it's not always you. And yeah, so I also want to show you real quick, just in this vein. So one of my top three, this is one of my top three tools. I can't remember if I have a full explanatory video on it on my page. I can't remember, but this is just quick and quick. It's something called transactional analysis. And here's the basic theory. And we engage with each other from one of three ego states. It's parent mode, adult mode, or child mode. So parent ego state, adult ego state, and child ego state. So it's like what we want to do most of the time is deal from adult to adult. It's like, oh, you didn't greet me when I came home. That makes me sad. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even hear you come in. It's over. But it's like, so it's like, the other person's like, why didn't, so they'd be like, why didn't you greet me when I came in? They're acting ugly and they're being shamey about it. And you could hear it in the tone. Um, and then it's like, well, you knew I was coming home. You knew I was doing this. And so it's this parent to child, like as if a parent is talking to a child, but it's actually just two adults in the room. And just as an FYI, there's mostly never adults in the room. If there's any kind of dysfunction going on, where are the adults? Um, it's people that are adults, but they're not speaking or engaging from their adult ego state. So this would be like a shaming parent thing. And Jade is, oh, let me convince you. Let me, mommy, let me convince you. Let me argue, let me argue my place. So it when they come to us in this shaming place, when we're feeling like we need to justify, argue, defend, explain, or convince, that's coming from child mode. And so what we want to do is come from adult mode. It's like, hey, I just totally didn't hear you, or, oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke, or yeah, and then it's just done. If it's more than that, something else is going on. And so, and of course, you'll feel the need to overshare. You'll feel that need. And so one of the first things to do is to like, just start being curious, just be just be curious. Is there any particular people that I feel like, or do I do this with everybody? And it's just like, oh, maybe I don't actually have to do that. Maybe I actually don't have to, in every situation, explain why I deserve to exist in this space, because you don't. Um, so if you are interested in hearing more, tales from a therapist chair, or studies in CPTSD and how to heal the font trauma response, or I also have a grief book and I have some videos about grief. I also have a book on trust and relationships called The Ladder of Trust. Both of those are available on Amazon, and I will put the links below. So yeah, so if you want more, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Love you.